All right, hello wine drinking people. Time for more of what I've had to drink yesterday, our ultimate vintage white tasting. Great way to start out the summertime here. I know it's hot all year round, but it's 64 degrees at the Wine Watch every day of the year. The perfect temperature to drink fine wine. And, well, to also age it. And, you know, the warehouse is 55 degrees. It's too cold to work in 55 degrees. But consistent temperature, the most important thing in aging wine. Anything under 70 degrees, you're going to be able to keep wine for a fairly long time. And most people don't think of aging white wines, but white wines age incredibly well. Some of the longest lived whites, of course, the sweet wines of Germany and of Sauternes, and white Bordeaux. Most people don't think of that. Burgundy, of course, one of the most expensive whites. And hey, man, we even had some neat stuff to start the evening out. You know, for this ultimate white tasting, what do we got in the store that we need to drink? It's pretty much the theme. And for $95, one of the best values of any events that we do, and they had 8 people here. So it's also, I mean, it's a really small event, and everybody who was here was just blown away at the wines. It was an amazing tasting. Starting out with the 3 that we opened up just to see if they were drinking good. The 2002 Elena Walk Gewürztraminer, 2001 Colin Delager Chassagne Montrachet Premier Cru, and then the Pegasus Bay Riesling from New Zealand. And the favorite there was probably the Riesling among the two. I like the Chassagne and the Riesling probably equally. The Elena Walk was, it's seen better days. You know, 2002 wasn't a great vintage. And it had a kind of distinct nose, though. Cocoa and dried lychee fruit and a toasted coconut. I don't know that I would have necessarily guessed it was Gewürztraminer, but still had some of that floral quality you get from Gewürztraminer. And some of the spice on the finish. And I had a little bit of fruit left, but somewhat lean. That cocoa and toasted coconut nuance to the finish. But a good little wine. And it was our last bottle we had, so none to sell. Just an interesting piece of information to share with some of you that may have that wine. Drink it up. The 2001 Colin Delager Chassagne Montrachet Chaumet was showing probably as good as I've had this wine in the last couple years. We opened up a few bottles and they were brown. But this one, this is not that wine. This is the Molieu from Huet, which is 96, which should be that color. But this Chassagne still had some life to it, some apple and lemon fruit, some toasted caramel and nutty quality, but nice freshness on the palate. And this wine's still good the next morning. Some nice vanilla cream notes at the end, and very good little 2001 Chassagne. That wasn't a great vintage for white Burgundy, but still drinking nicely. We got 1 bottle of that left. I'm crossing my fingers it's as good as this one was. And then the 03 Peg Bay. And, well, that was the only one that they finished that night. The other 2, we still had wine left the next morning, the Peg Bay Riesling, which this wine had that lovely peach and kind of honey character, kind of sweet tart character on the palate, and still quite fresh and lively, though. Riesling being one of the longest lived of all the white wines. This had a lovely sweet and sour fruit on the palate, that honeyed note, and that smoky mineral nuance all the way to the end. Very good stuff. All right, we started out our actual tasting with the 2004 Pavillon Blanc de Chateau Margaux, and 2004, a great vintage for the whites. This is a wine that's been made for just about 100 years at the property, 100% Sauvignon Blanc, and a little bit of a reduced bouquet at first, but this wine opened up very nicely. It took about an hour for both of these white Bordeaux to really start showing their stuff. Some lemon, quince, a little pink grapefruit citrus, notes of kind of yeasty dough, bread notes, white flowers, and a strong kind of gravelly minerally note coming out, especially on the second day. And this one was fantastic with a tuna carpaccio that was garnished with a citrus salad and a little avocado butter with this solid cava drizzled on the plate is also one of the sauces. Man, just brought both of these white Bordeaux to another level. This wine has wonderful richness on the palate, kind of that tongue-tingly minerality, the savoriness of that grapefruit shown at the end, and a lot of minerality. Really lovely richness even on the second day. Most excellent juice. One of the top white wines made in Bordeaux. The 83 Domaine de Chevalier Blanc, a great old vintage for whites, and this wine showing brilliantly. More expensive than the red, partially because there's only 5 hectares planted to 70% Sauvignon Blanc and 30 Semillon, which is approximately the blend in this wine. So they make a lot less of this than they do of the red wine at Domaine de Chevalier. This wine's got a bit of that candied pink grapefruit fruits there showing, honeydew melon, notes of coffee and toffee and gravelly mineral nuance showing. A very pronounced bouquet. Even on the second day, this wine needed some time to open up, but wow, incredible richness still on the palate. That bright fruit, long tangy finish, really concentrated, hit it all cylinders still, and wow. Wonderful with the chicken Kiev and that Béarnaise sauce. Killer juice. One of my favorite wines of the night. It was hard to pick a wine of the night. I got a couple killers on the score here. The 99 Marcus and Upper Barn. Wow, this wine killer. Also, just amazing to think you can keep a California Chardonnay for this long. The color on this was darker than the 2002 Chablis, and it should have been. This wine's seen quite a bit of oak and just a really rich nose here. Decadent butterscotch, vanilla creme brulee, candied pineapple, marzipan, complex and rich bouquet of aromas. Just incredible richness on the palate. This wine's got a texture of like heavy cream, almost an oiliness to it, but fresh butter toast, butterscotch, cinnamon, exotic spices, and just the most intensity on the palate in terms of fruit, spice, and even minerality. And acidity, well, yeah, you got to have acidity if you got, all this richness and everything in place and in proportion in this wine. Long layered finish. Man, it seems like you could keep this wine another 10 years. Killer juice. A lot of people's wine of the night. The Daniel Etienne, a Premier Cru Chablis, which we're getting more of this wine. I mean, this is an incredible value. For just like $60, you can get an 02 vintage Premier Cru Chablis. And this is just right behind Vaillant. And this wine's actually held at the winery for Neil Rosenthal. Nice evolution showing here. Some seashell minerality to the lemon meringue fruit on the nose. Kind of candied, but still wonderful freshness here on the tongue. This wine could go another 10 years easily. Lovely maturity of fruit there. Tangy minerally quality. That seashell minerality from Chablis. Drinking close to its peak, but should last another decade. Excellent juice. The Huet Vouvray, which is what I got here. This is got wonderful color and man, just an incredible bouquet, kind of like an apple cider, honeyed apricot, butterscotch, and flan notes there. Really opening up nicely and incredible with both of the food courses. This apple cider, butterscotch, creme flan, and really lovely thickness and richness on the palate. Not quite as sweet as the other two sweet wines, but definitely had some residual in there, but a firm hand of acidity holding everything together. Drinking beautifully right now, but man, this wine will last another couple of decades in your cellar. Most excellent juice. And we got a few bottles of this left at $100 and some odd a bottle. 88 Souterrain, which, hey, there's a lot of 88-point wines. It's only got 88 points from Parker, and I think the Spectator only rated 88. And this is a great vintage in Sauternes. This wine had a beautiful bouquet here, delicious, kind of honey peach, vanilla cream, caramel apple, just wonderful richness on the nose, and still lovely fruit on the palate, lovely sweetness, candied apple, vanilla pie, and honeyed caramel. Really incredibly complex and long finish. Most people don't think of sweet wine with a savory dish, but this one was also wonderful with a chicken Kiev. And that Béarnaise sauce just married beautifully with the Sauternes. And then, of course, the tuna carpaccio with that citrus salad was also incredible with the Sauternes. Two things you may not think that Sauternes would go great with. And then on to one of the rarest of the sweet wines, the ice wine from Germany, Jawohl. And this 1983, an incredible vintage. And for this price, you can't buy a new release of ice wine, not even in half bottle. So one of the best values on the table. It had an intense bouquet, kind of dried tobacco, smoky notes to the dried raisin, apple and pear fruit, and brown spices, cloves, cinnamon. Really wonderful complexity. And on the palate, this wine incredibly rich, sweet and tangy, and probably twice as much sugar as the Sauternes, but it had so much acidity. It finishes dry, and you could keep this wine another 50 years in your cellar. Most excellent juice. And that's what we had to drink at our vintage white tasting. I'm your host, Andrew Lampasoni, signing off for the Wine Watch, saying remember, always drink the good stuff first.